because I can see there's a packed crowd still in the tents in the shade there. But I want to begin with something just for a moment, seriously. When I came in earlier in Reno, I was told right away by one of the law enforcement officials that just up in Carson City this morning at about 2 a.m., one of the sheriff's deputies was shot and killed as he responded to a domestic violence situation. And if you just pause with me for a moment and say a prayer for his family and really his extended family, because all the men and women in law enforcement are an extended family when it comes to incidents like this. Thank you. Well, it's great to be back, and I got to tell you, I'm Scott Walker. I'm running for president. I'd love to have your vote. And I got two reasons I'm running. One's named Matt, the other's named Alex. Those are my two boys. They're the same reason why years ago, Tonette and I, after a lot of thought, a lot of talk, and a lot of prayer, decided to run for governor in my state, even though my state hasn't gone Republican for president since 1984. You see, back then, my state was a mess. And for Tonette and I as parents, we said, that's just not acceptable. And so we won that election, even though it was tough. They threw a lot at us in 2010. And then shortly after taking office, some of you may have heard, we did a little something unusual in politics. We actually did what we said we were going to do. And we took on, we didn't just take on the unions. We didn't just take on the Democrats. We took on the establishment in our own party. Because you see, there are a lot of people in the legislative branch that said, no. We don't want to make those tough choices. We want to do those things. In fact, the week after the election in 2010, I went in and met with all the new state lawmakers on the Republican side. And we'd gone from all Democrat to all Republican. And I said, you know what? The voters sent us a message. And they don't want us to just nibble around the edges. They want us to push big, bold reforms. I said it's put up or shut up time, and we listened to that. We put in place big, bold reforms, and I'm proud to say today, because of those reforms, my boys, my sons, and all the others like them in their generation are living in an even better state. You see, we had a $3.6 billion budget deficit, and we fixed it. And we fixed it even while cutting taxes by more than $2 billion in a blue state like Wisconsin. We took on the big government special interests, the big government union bosses, and took power out of their hands and put it firmly into the hands of the hardworking taxpayers. We made Wisconsin a Midwestern industrial state, a right-to-work state, giving people the freedom to choose whether to be in a labor union or not. We defunded Planned Parenthood more than 4 years ago, long before any videos. We passed and I signed into law concealed carry and castle doctrine so that law-abiding citizens can protect themselves, their families, and their properties. In a blue state like Wisconsin, we even passed something that says it's easy to vote but hard to cheat. We require a photo ID to vote in the state of Wisconsin. We didn't just talk about how bad Obamacare was. On my very first day in office, I authorized our state to join the federal lawsuit against Obamacare. And even though I had tremendous pressure in a blue state, I said no to a state exchange. I said no to the expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare. And my citizens are much better for it. We need to repeal Obamacare once and for all. It's not enough to just talk about it. I've shown you can actually act on it. And that probably more than anything is something we're talking about for a moment, because you see, as I travel this country, whether it's here or anywhere else across this country, I got to tell you, a lot of people are fed up with Washington, or as I call it, 68 square miles surrounded by reality. You know, they've had it. We've had it for years, but lately, in the last few months, we've had it with Republican leaders in Washington. You see, they said, give us not just a House, but give us a Senate, and we'll send a bill up to repeal Obamacare. Well, where is it? Where is it? They talked about how bad it was that Barack Obama, not once, not twice, but 22 times said he couldn't do what he did in November on illegal immigration. He said before he was not above the law. But yet the Congress hasn't taken away the power of the purse from it. It took 25 governors, I'm proud to be one of them, that went to court to stop Barack Obama from using that action that's not legal under the Constitution. People are fed up with Washington, and I get it. There's a lot of good people out there on this stage and other stages like this running for president who are pretty good at talking about the frustration that Republicans have with leaders in our nation's capital, and that's great. But I know that you all here are here today because just like Tonette and I decided to run for governor back in 2010 because we cared about our children, I know you're here today because you share that same sentiment. You care about your children and your grandchildren. You love America like I love America. And what you want is you don't just want to be angry, you want to do something to fix it for future generations. If that's what you want, then I'm your candidate. Because you see, a lot of people are good at fighting, but they haven't won those fights. And other people running are good at winning, but they haven't been in the fight over the last few years. I'm the only candidate in this race who has fought and won, not just won 3 elections in 4 years in a blue state, but won and actually got results without compromising my common sense conservative principles. If you want a winner who stands up on principle and doesn't back down, I need your vote. Because there's a real battle ahead, and it's not with fellow Republicans who are running for president, it's with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton would be worse. She would be worse as president than this president. That's hard to do. But think about it. When it comes to reform, Hillary Clinton measures success in government by how many people are dependent on the government. The rest of us in America, we measure success by just the opposite. By how many people are no longer dependent on the government. Because we understand that true freedom and prosperity, they don't come from the mighty hand of the government. They come from empowering people to live their own lives and control their own destinies through the dignity that is born of work. Of work. We should be the ones talking about that. I think about it as a kid. I grew up in a small town. A lot of people were telling me about how to win in this state. We're going to be all over the state because when I won for governor, I won 60 to 72 counties. I grew up in a small rural town. I know that's where Republican votes are in the primary, but I know we can win over independents and even discerning Democrats all across the state. We're not just here for the primary season. We're here for the general election because we understand this state's going to help elect the next president. We're committed all the way through November of 2016. We're glad to be here in Douglas County, but we're going to be in counties all across the state because you're important, both early and then late in November as well. But there's a great contrast. I grew up in a small town. My first job was washing dishes at the Countryside Restaurant. I went up to the big time after that. I started flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. Funny story, my friend Paul Ryan was in Janesville, about 15 miles down the road. I was in Delavan. We were both working at McDonald's. The only difference is Paul's manager told him he had to flip hamburgers in the back because he didn't have the interpersonal skills to work the front cash register. True story. But I think about growing up there in that small town. My dad was a small town preacher. My mom was a part-time secretary. My grandparents were farmers who didn't have indoor plumbing until my mother went off to junior high school. My dad's dad was a machinist for 42 years. I look back at life and realize from my brother and me, we did not inherit fame or fortune from our families. What we got was the belief that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can do and be anything you want. That's the American dream, and that is worth fighting for. For work, for that work ethic. Which leads into the second point, not just about reform, but about growth. Because you see, Hillary Clinton seems to think you grow the economy by growing Washington. You know, last year, 6 of the 10 wealthiest counties in America, you know where they were? In Washington, right around Washington, D.C. The rest of us, we understand that people create jobs, not the government. And the best way to get the best way to grow the economy is to get the government out of the way so that people all across America can create more jobs. We got a simple growth plan. It's called repeal Obamacare once and for all and put patients and families back in charge of their health care decisions. Put in place an all the above energy policy that empowers us to use what God has given us here in America and on this continent. We are an energy-rich country. We can start refueling our nation's economy going forward. We need to make sure we rein in the out-of-control federal regulations. When it comes to reform, I would take big chunks of the federal government and send it back to the states, not just in Medicaid, education, transportation, even environmental protection. Send it back to the states where people who actually live there have to live with the consequences. Just ask our friends over in Colorado, where I was born, in New Mexico, what they think about the EPA these days. Those are not people living with the consequences of their actions. Along with those things, help people get the education and skills that they need to succeed in careers that pay far more than the minimum wage. You know, Hillary Clinton talks about how low wages are. Let's help people get the skills and the education they need for careers that pay far more than the minimum wage. You know, I'm proud of my state. We took on education reform in the public sector. We didn't just take on the unions. We actually made things better. We got rid of seniority and tenure. We can now hire and fire based on merit, pay based on performance. That means we can put the best and the brightest in the classrooms. And our schools are better because of it. But we need a chance to do that all across America, because you see, to me, I believe that every child, regardless of background, whether in a traditional public school, or a choice school, or a charter school, or a private school, or virtual school, or a homeschool environment, every child deserves access to a great education. And the best place to do it is right in your own communities, not in Washington. No Common Core, no nationwide school board. And the fifth thing to grow the economy is to actually lower the tax burden and reform the tax code, both on individuals and on employers. Now, I said I've cut taxes by $2 billion. Sometimes people in my state say, hey, Governor, why do you spend so much time focused on relieving the burden on hardworking taxpayers? I say it's simple. It's simple. You see, my wife and I, over the years, have gone, I've gone with my wife often to a place called Kohl's Department Stores. Some of you may have heard me say this before, but I learned a long time ago. I go to that place, and it's like any other great retailer. I go there, and I've learned over the years now, if I'm going to go buy a shirt that was $29.99, I go to the rack that says it was that, now it's $19.99. And then I take the insert from the Sunday newspaper and the scratch off up there, and I take it up to the clerk. Or maybe I remember the flyer back from our house if we stop by that gives me 15 or 20 or, if I'm really lucky, 30% off. And then as they're ringing it up, my wife sweeps into her purse and pulls out some Kohl's cash. And next thing they know, they ring it up and they're paying me to buy that shirt, right? Well, not quite, but it feels like it, right? So how does a company like Kohl's make money? They make it off of volume, right? They could charge you more for that shirt, or they could lower the price, broaden the base, and increase the volume of people who buy their product. That's what I think about your money, the taxpayers' money. You see, the government can charge higher rates, or we can lower the rates, broaden the base, increase the volume of people who participate in the economy. A plan like that worked pretty well years ago under someone by the name of Ronald Reagan, a very good friend, by the way, of Governor and Senator Paul Laxalt, who helped push through that Reagan tax plan. Back then, we called it the Laffer curve. Today, I call it the Kohl's curve, because I think you can use your money and spend your money far better than the federal government. And the third difference out there with Hillary Clinton, not just about reform and about growth, but it's really about safety. Because you see, to prosper, I should say, you need to live in a free and prosperous nation, in a free and prosperous world, a safe and stable world. And we're not getting this under Obama and Clinton. You see, in my lifetime, the best president when it comes to national security and foreign policy was a governor from California. Under President Ronald Reagan, we rebuilt our military. We stood up for our allies. We stood up against our enemies. And without apology, we stood for strong American values. And that led to one of the most peaceful times in modern American history. We need to have that kind of approach going forward. That's the kind of president I want to be. Sadly today, though, under Obama and Clinton's doctrine of the world, we're leading from behind. And that has us headed towards a disaster. Think about it. We got a president who drew a line in the sand and allowed it to be crossed. A president who called ISIS the JV squad. Yemen a success story. And Iran, a place we can do business with. I remember as a kid, my brother and I tying yellow ribbons around the tree in front of our house during the 444 days that Iran held 52 Americans hostage. Iran is not a place we should be doing business with. As President of the United States, I will terminate the deal with Iran on my very first day in office. On top of that, we got a president who earlier this year proclaimed that the greatest threat to future generations was climate change. Well, Mr. President, I respectfully disagree. The greatest threat to future generations is radical Islamic terrorism, and we need to do something about it. We need to lift the political restrictions on the military personnel already in Iraq, so they can do what they're trained to do to help our Kurd and our Sunni allies reclaim the territory taken by ISIS, and do it in a way that does not allow ISIS to retreat into safe haven into places like Syria. You see, they're like a virus. We need to take it out. On behalf of your children and mine, I'd rather take the fight to them instead of wait till they bring the fight to us. Along with that, we need to stand up and acknowledge that Israel is an ally of the United States and start treating Israel like an ally. No daylight between our countries. We need to stop the advances of Russia into sovereign nations. You know, Putin believes in the old Lenin principle that you probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. If you find steel, you stop. Under Obama and Clinton, Putin has had far too many years of mush. The United States needs a foreign policy that puts steel in front of our enemies going forward. We need to stand up to China and stop the cyber attacks and the advances in international waters, and to speak out about their abysmal human rights record. We need to once and for all finally secure our border, enforce our laws, no amnesty, and go forward with a legal immigration system that gives priority to American working families and their wages. And we need to honor our men and women in uniform by giving them the resources that they need to keep us safe, by giving them the protection here on American soil to keep themselves safe, by arming them here in America. And then we need to make sure they have the quality and timely health care. Keep talking. And the timely health care that they deserve. But the best way to honor them is to make sure that we fight to win. Yes.